how long have you been streaming for, and like what got you?
Yeah, so the streaming thing is only been like a small like change of path on this content creation journey. My actual first YouTube videos go back to 2013 when I was in high school. I posted some very, very poorly made YouTube videos because I used to watch guys on YouTube like Vanos Gaming back in the day and people like that who were just people I enjoyed in my free time. So I decided to try to make some videos on my own. And for about 5 years until 2017, I was very on and off. And that's when I started streaming because that was the mode of creating content I was able to do more of. So I started streaming basically nearly daily in like 2017, 2018. I decided to just give it a go and almost like force myself to go at it every day just to see what would happen. And I've been basically doing it ever since full time in 2021, the very beginning of the year, and I've been creating content full time for now 4 years. I had just kept on playing in my free time, never knew anyone even made much content on the game or especially streamed it. In MLB 18, one day I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to stream the game. Sounds like a fun thing to mess around with and do. And I'm playing Diamond Dynasty at like the worst skill level ever. And just, I think about an hour into the stream, I get rated by Daddy Dimmu TV back
Oh
then
crap!
with about 200 viewers, I think was the number he had. And that was like, there was a moment that clicked there. I'm like, wait, first of all, people watch MLB The Show on Twitch.
Yeah,
Didn't even know that was a thing. Had no idea. And a few people got to know me just through that stream and that raid. There's some people who are still in my community today who were part of that original Dimmu raid in MLB 18.
that's
And and that's when I kind of realized, like, wait, there are people who play this. Like, that's so cool. So that's when it put in my head, like, okay, this might be a fun thing to come back to. So I would very infrequently stream MLB The Show heading into MLB 19. And through that time, I met a few people in the community. There was one kid who his name is Caleb. He was someone who was in the community back in the day. Got into a lot of drama back then, but he's grown beyond that.
oh
He was
thank
one of the
God.
first people I met. And if any of you know De Holy Grail in your Twitch directory, he was probably like the first or second person I met. And he was just a dude who was streaming in college for the fun of it. And he was getting into it more and wanted to basically get to know more people who streamed. And through 2019, like the beginning part of 2019, I didn't stream much of the game. I had my PS4 I had was a used one. It wouldn't keep the game running consistently, so it would crash all the time. So I just played Fortnite still. And he's like, bro, just stream MLB The Show. Just
Yeah,
do it. Just go for it. I feel like you'll like doing it. And he was basically pressuring me every time I'd go live to stream it. And I'm like, you know, I'll get a new PS4 that works right. I'll give it a go. And the general beginning period, I think like 1 or 2 months into MLB 19, I started streaming it like every day. And basically ever since, it's history. It all started from just him peer pressuring me to
yeah.
to stream the game all the time. It's like this whole like the people talk about like the butterfly effect where
Yeah,
one thing happens and it leads
and
to
it
another
leads to
thing and
another.
another.
Yeah,
The
you.
Dimmu raid led to me meeting the Holy Grail, which
Yeah,
led to him selfishly peer pressuring me. He's told me this, by the way, that he was like selfish and wanted to
yeah.
know more people. He's like, I'm gonna tell this dude to stream. He's like a cool guy. So I started streaming it more because of him, which led to me, everything, becoming a full-time creator because of doing MLB The Show stuff. And
Yep.
today. So it was never part of my original plans. It just kind of became a thing in MLB 19 when I decided to play the game a bit more and got peer pressure into doing it more.
So the tips, the tricks, that style of video, that's where I came. That's where I called you at one point, and in the introduction of this stream is Scann the man, the analytics man. MLB The Show 23. One of the biggest problems that we had, which still continues on to this day, is hitting. I remember
Mm,
the live stream. You were playing ranked. You put on a live stream, you're like, you know what? I'm gonna calculate the launch angle and the speed and see what the
yep.
probability was and predictability of what would happen in an actual MLB game. And you're like, I'm in a ranked game. I'm gonna be positive a lot. This dude's gonna get pissed off at me eventually. Like I thought it was so different because it was different, and that's what everyone has their quirks, niches in the MLB The Show community. You deep digging into the analytics side, especially through a gameplay perspective. What made you come up with that?
That's a good question. I think back then it was around that time of MLB 22 where people were starting to like common talk was just frustration at hitting. It's honestly been a thing for like 6 years now where people are like not happy with the state of hitting no matter what happens. So it's like it's a buzzword in the community saying like, oh, hitting sucks or hitting whatever.
Yep.
It's a polarizing topic. And that was around the time where I started to try to get more creative. So one day I was sitting there thinking of ideas. And I remember running into watching a real life baseball game and seeing that they had like the StatCast probabilities for certain hits of certain launch angles and where the ball lands in the field, like what was the average of that being a hit. And I was like, wait, what if we try to mess around this in MLB The Show? Like, and I know it's something no one else has ever done. I definitely, honestly, back then, I wasn't really an MLB analytics nerd at all, but I've kind of done that bit by bit over the last few years, learning more about MLB analytics. And it tied perfectly with me because if anyone watched me and my MLB The Show content, it was all just deep diving things on the game that nobody ever wanted to do. So it was just an idea that kind of spurred that day entirely where I was like, oh, this seems like a fun idea for like a fun video to try that might tie like a fun gameplay to the tips content I was making back then, kind of this analytic stuff. So it was just one of those things that just happened spur of the moment basically. I don't think I put much thought into it whatsoever.
And then you kind of reduced the amount of streams and stuck more with creating of content. Was
Yeah.
there like a reason? Did you sit, ponder, or were you like instantly like, we have to make this change?
Yeah. I think for me, a big part of this whole content creation journey for me has been just self reflection. And every so often, when different things come up, you hear a lot of people in content creation talk about burnout,
Yep.
where they get burnt out of creating the same thing for a while, or the thing that they once enjoyed, they start losing that enjoyment. And that was with the type of content I was making. When I first went full time in content, I was basically uploading YouTube videos daily. So just quick videos I would make in a couple hours. I try to stream every day for like 3 hours. So it was like every day, hop on 3 hours, 4 hours of making a video and editing, 3 hours, 4 hours of streaming every single day. And at the end of MLB 22, so around November 2022, I had my first real case of being burnt out, where that motivation and the previous enjoyment was just kind of gone. The motivation was just entirely nowhere. I couldn't get up and do the same things I was doing, and I had to really reflect why. And I eventually came to the line that it is because I was just forcing myself to do things every day and not being creative in the way that I know I wanted to be. I always wanted to make videos that were like fun, entertaining videos rather than hop on and make purely information videos to help people out. And I never was able to do that with how I made content back then. So then it took me realizing, okay, if I want to do this, I got to try it. So I focused all my efforts to learning the craft of YouTube and making good videos and how the platform works. And through that has becoming my focus rather than the Twitch streaming, which it had been for the like last 6 years before that point. Yeah,
Like,
it's a good question. In terms of how I got reached out about, I've already had some level of communication with them over the last few years. It started back in, I believe, MLB 22 was when the whole thing was going down, and they decided to make a move. I think after a couple of us, I think me and Thune had done some of our own watch parties in our own time, probably mostly Thune, with some of those circuit events. And around then, a little bit after, they had someone on their esports team. They're like, hey, like it would be cool if like we made this a thing. Like you guys could be like ambassadors. You do some watch parties. And we got reached out directly by an employee at SDS, and we started then. We basically was going into some of the details of we would find out the info of the events, they give us our initial feedback, and see, we would like kind of speak for the community and be like, okay, we think they might like this. You should make this clear. You should watch this. And we would kind of do all those things leading up to the tournaments where we would do the watch parties and sometimes have the broadcast on SCS's channel. And it was kind of that same way it was that way for the last couple of years. And I had been an ambassador, as you could say, where really we worked with them specifically to cover the events. We would commentate whenever, like if they needed people, we would do the watch parties whenever we were physically able to. And it was literally like our job with SES. Like we collaborated with them to do that. And that I had done it until this year. This is the first year I decided to step off and not do it just because of the time commitment with it.
Yeah.
But I know Yayo and Prof and JX are guys who are still getting at it, doing that coverage. And it's a pretty cool thing seeing them work with the community, people who at least like play the game enough and are in touch with the player base to kind of get a basis of like what people like, don't like. And especially like, I mean, I always look back to Thune for even getting me into the commentary stuff, because his commentary was so great, and his whole thing getting into MLB The Show content was commentating. Like he grew as an MLB The Show content creator by commentating Twins games in MLB The Show during the pandemic.
Oh, no kidding.
So
you see, I say
it was
this
a
lot.
cool part of like his content, and he kept going with it with esports.
You see, I always say this about different streamers that I've come across. There's so many different people that I wish I met day one. Like, there's so many people that are partnered because obviously, streaming services, they're gonna push the people who have that little check mark next to them. It's like, you kind of wish you were there from the start. There's so many people in the MLB. Because, I've hung out in Thune's stream, I think it was 23, going over the chin of Mike Lowell to figure out that it was him. Like, we're like deep, like, back when you had your whole flashbacks of the check Twitter scan. I definitely like the fact that the show with the ambassadors went with they definitely went diverse, which is great. You have Yayo. Yayo is he speaks both English and Spanish. You have those who also speak Spanish, so that way, there's no exclusion. If that makes sense. So it's kind of nice.
Yeah.
That
yeah. Different
giving
crowds.
giving people the opportunities, different crowds. Again, like you said, different groups of the fan base.
Yeah, that was something that kind of just happened passively too. I believe at the beginning it was I think it was me, Thune, Yayo mainly at the beginning, and then that kind of progressed to JX and Prof, because they were dudes who enjoyed the game, and they realized like, oh, there's like a whole other audience of Spanish speaking MLB The Show fans that can't watch the broadcast in the same way because they just don't speak enough English, or they just prefer to watch people speaking Spanish. And it was really cool to kind of see it develop. It's something that I think a lot of people don't even know the most about. Like, there is like a whole other community here of people who are Spanish speaking creators and people who just play the game. Because like the cool thing about baseball is it really dips into the Latino like culture, and you get that part of the game. And sometimes if you're even in the MLB The Show directory sometimes.
Do you feel a game mode of some be able to get better at higher difficulty benefit the player?
My opinion on this, and it's something I've talked about a bit over the last couple of years, is that it just comes down to like what the problem is with ranked. And the problem I think with ranked as a mode is that it's acting like it's like a competitive, player versus player mode where the goal is you get better and you want to get to World Series, things like that. And structurally, though, it doesn't fit that way because, like you said, you have rating windows. You could match up with a wider range of players. With the mode, with how it's set up, the ratings aren't always static. It's not like a game like Rocket League, for example, where like maybe if I'm playing in plat, then I'm playing plat players or people just on the border, and it's the same similar skill of player basically most of the time because you kind of actually hover around the ratings. Problem with ranked is I'm someone, for example, who got the GOAT difficulty. I got to 1,000 rating the previous season. This season starts, I start off at 700. I play on Hall of Fame to start. So obviously, at the beginning of the season, a lot of great players play each other and they do that normally. Me, I just hadn't gotten to ranked. So I started playing ranked the other day. So I am 1,000 rating player, someone who can play on GOAT and win most of my games on GOAT, playing someone who is on Hall of Fame, and at this point in the season, likely struggling. And that comes down to how the mode is just structurally flawed. That should not be the case whatsoever. It's like a mix of being like a competitive mode where you play similar skill level players with a mode where you just go through a path of trying to get to World Series or whatever your highest rating is. And in my opinion, they need to split ranked to solve this into two separate things. You make a competitive mode that doesn't explicitly give card rewards. It's basically like Weekend Classic is, where you play people within your division that you get placed in, and you keep on playing people in your division until you rank up to the next division. Now you solely play people in that next division. And it needs those hard locks because in this game, you have different difficulties that change how the game plays. You need to know you're playing a similar skill when you're in a division until you level up to the next one. So I think they need to do something like that, make a competitive mode where you have separate ranks and you fit in your ranks, and your goal is solely to get up in ranks. Your goal is to get better placement, and you get cosmetic rewards, maybe stub rewards for getting divisions, but something to kind of show off like, hey, I'm going up in the ranks, and that's the sole purpose of ranked. Then you can make what current ranked is into its own separate mode as like an alternate 9-inning game mode, where the goal is just called like Road to World Series, we'll call it, where you just start off at a rating, you have rating pluses and minuses, and you just get up to World Series, where it's a similar type of ranked structure where there's a card at the end of it, just not difficulty structured the same way. The goal is just to get the World Series, and then bang, you're done with the mode. And I think if you do that, you have the replayable skill-based mode that they actually want ranked to be as its own thing, heavily based off like other competitive shooters like the Valorants and the Counter-Strikes, and Rocket League, I think, is like the most relatable one since it's a sports game that you have your divisions and it promotes you to get better. You want to try to learn to get better and get placed in your higher divisions. And if not, you at least know you're playing similarly skilled players, so you should have some good games. So you have a mode like that. Then you have a separate mode where you just make the path to World Series. You give a card at the end of it that they currently have. I think that's been my image of what a solution would be, because ranked is kind of trying to be a bit of both. And fundamentally, it has a lot of flaws with being a little bit of both. Like when I was playing those lower leveled players, I won 3 games before the second inning because people would quit. They saw my team, they saw my 1,000 icon, and they were like, I'm not bothering. It's not competitive enough to get people to want to like play me and get better. They just want to get the World Series. They're assuming they're losing. They're tipping the cap, and the game doesn't really punish you too much. They're not going to lose that much rating. Get it back next game. It's like, fundamentally wrong. So I think that the problem with ranked is that at its core, it's just not set up to be a proper competitive mode that people want it to be. Not even just the players like you who are like you say you're hovering an all-star and bang, sudden Hall of Fame game. That doesn't help you really get better, just getting the very infrequent Hall of Fame game. You get better by playing it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And getting a feel for the timing and everything there. You build up that muscle memory. So you don't do that unless you get to play it consistently. If you play it very infrequently, you just get stuck in this same loop of just, okay, I'm good at All-Star and I can get into Hall of Fame, but that first game in Hall of Fame I lose because I suck at Hall of Fame. So I go back to All-Star and I'm stuck in this constant loop. I hear time and time again that it happens to people. And it's because the mode isn't properly structured to be that type of mode to maybe allow those people to like consistently play in a difficulty. Like make it so like if a player jumps up to the Hall of Fame difficulties, now they're only playing on Hall of Fame and they maybe get like a little bit of a window where they could lose 2 to 3 games and stay in that division. So they get a little like a beginning forgiveness. That's like a common thing you see in other games where you have like a rating forgiveness. So if you lose your first couple games, you don't get booted down right away. MLBTheShow does.
So the final question out of the 5. So the 6th question out of the 6 questions that I had, the last one is what can we expect from you, whether it's long term or short?
Good question. Honestly, I don't want to say more of the same because a lot of it may not seem like it with the type of videos I put out to many people, but I'm always constantly evolving things behind the scenes in the ways that I put together videos and content. And I'm always like adjusting with how much I balance creating different types of content. So never expect the same out of me ever. That feels like something that's always constantly changing. But I mean, I'm just gonna keep if there's anything to expect out of me in the short term or the long term, just keep on expecting hopefully fun and unique YouTube videos out of me. Whether that continues to be MLB The Show forever or expands into other baseball games or other games in the future. No, those goals are constantly evolving. Just if there's anything that I know is a fact is that I'm gonna keep on making YouTube videos the way that I have been for the last 2 years. And it's gonna as of right now, there's no reason that's ever gonna stop. Because like we've been talking about, I love it to death. And we're gonna keep going. So expect to see more of my face on YouTube as we keep going here.
Well, there you have it, folks. From the lips of Scann, the man, the analytics man, first guest of the broadcast booth. I definitely had a great time with this. Scann, again, I really appreciate you coming on, being able to work this out. Not semi last minute, but definitely kind of an out of the blue. No, I just thank you for coming on. I hope everybody enjoyed. Definitely gonna be some snippets that I'll pull out here and there for social media, obviously. Possibly a better thumbnail. Nope. Thanks. So I hope everybody enjoyed. I hope everybody has a good night, and I don't know about Scann, but I will definitely be back live tomorrow for the content drop once I get home, situation settled. But yeah, until then, everybody have a good night.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.